It's just another night for Supernatural Girls. Real stories, real answers to life's biggest supernatural mysteries. And now for another exciting interview with paranormal experts from this world and others. Here's your host, paranormal researcher Patricia Baker, on the one, the only Supernatural Girls.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of Supernatural Girls Radio. I'm your host, Patricia Baker. I am here with my co-host all the way from sunny Tucson at 104 degrees, PK, Patricia Kirkman. How you doing tonight, PK?
I am absolutely ecstatic. I can't wait for our show tonight.
I know. We've got a terrific guest, don't we? We always have a terrific guest, but
we do,
I can't wait also. This is a super subject. You know, it's one of our favorites, dreaming.
Well, I find everybody dreams but me, so I can't wait to talk to Tom.
Well, Tom's going to straighten you right out. I mean,
God, I hope so.
Help you. He's going to help all of us and inspire us to get interested in our dreaming minds again, because it's a really important part of our consciousness. And I think overall, our culture has gone a little too crazy. We've kind of forgotten about it. So we've got to bring this back, and Tom Verner is the one to do it. And he's here with us tonight. He's the author of a tremendous book that we both read called The Transformational Power of Dreaming. There it is. We love this book, and he's the co-author with Stephen Larson. But Tom is the spokesperson tonight. We're going to bring him on in a few minutes. But first, my goodness, we've all survived Hurricane Irma. Well, it's easy to survive when you're in Tucson and I'm in Massachusetts, right?
That's very true. That's very true. Ask those that are in the middle of it, not so much.
Not so much. And we have a dear friend down there in Florida, but he did make out okay. He's all right.
He's got his duck feathers, he can fly.
That's right. so anyways, but our hearts and minds and prayers still go to the people there that are still doing the cleanup, still trying to find their way out of the mess that this created.
Right. Well, I had a mass prayer group that went on. I said it to everybody I knew, and it was hundreds of people that came together for prayers the day after this hit. And I'm wonderful. So grateful to them for being so kind and stopping their day at noon to join together.
It's so important for us to do that, because as we all know, when two or more are gathered, anything is possible.
Oh,
so
for sure.
Being a part of a prayer group in a prayer chain is a great thing in today's crazy world, where we have some nut over there in North Korea with his finger on the button and all kinds of other things going on. So tell us, numerologically, PK, what's happening? We're still in that shadow period, aren't we?
The shadow period until the 15th, and supposedly it disappears. My God, I pray so. Oh, but really? The month itself is, for everyone, if you hadn't heard it before, this is an echo chamber. It is a review of last year. Okay? We're reviewing the year. But the thing that's so important today is it's a 5-day which deals with change, major change, good to bad, bad to good. Everything seems to be moving faster. It's trying to ride the bicycle down the hill, and you can't put your foot on the pedals.
Whoa.
That's what the day's all about. And if you'll pay attention later, you'll see that there have been more accidents today, more people doing schizo-crazy things, because the 5 brings out this, got to do it in a hurry, got to do it, the quick fix. But then on the other half is the Kenny Rogers, the gambler, the song of the gambler. That there's a luck factor that goes with today, if you're lucky enough to have those odds in your chart. Me, I keep looking at them. I want to play them, and I look at the numbers, and they look at me, and they go, pfft, and I go, wait a minute. I'm doing you good, you treat me dirty.
Oh, lucky for you. Oh, that's not good. Oh, my goodness.
But it is all about quick change, and that's the part that's important. Let change move us from one spot into something that's better. Why not? Open up the arms wide and go for the good stuff.
Yes, we deserve it. It's been a real roller coaster ride, and the Mercury retrograde didn't help anything, that's for sure.
No, it did not.
No, but it's good that we're at the tail end of it. Let's hope we can keep this moving forward in a good way. That's great, PK. Thank you. And we had some really interesting paranormal news stories. Now, first and foremost, the one on our driveway here.
Yes.
I reposted these pictures because I wanted it to be seen first and foremost by our listeners. So please go to our Facebook page, Supernatural Girlz on Facebook. You will see 3 photos that have no explanation.
Right.
You will see the first photo, which is a big, huge ball of light with streams of light coming from it. And it almost looks like 2 feet underneath it, or a trail or something.
Mm-hmm.
There's a deer off to the left-hand side that is standing there. And let me tell you, there is no lighting on our driveway. We have a driveway that's almost a mile long. There are no lights on the driveway. There are no lights in the entire town, by the way. There are no street lights at all. Right. So where this came from, I can't tell you, but this showed up on the trail cam. Then there were 2 more photos taken in succession. The other thing that's weird about these photos, and I want everybody to know, this camera is set up to take photos every 3 seconds. Yet these photos were taken almost simultaneously. So they happened boom, 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 one after another, and there was only a fraction of a second in between. So this is highly unusual, and we've had, as you know, and all our listeners know that have had with us for years now, we have had this happen before. There's a portal on the right side of the driveway, and things come through. So this is the latest of what has come through to visit us. We, again, don't know what it is. We've asked people for their input. We're asking you, our audience, to take a look. Let us know what you think it is. See if you can tune in and figure out what in the world this is that came through the portal that night. It's fascinating.
Well, and also you have the negative,
yes,
which doesn't let you see through.
Now, Bob Luca, who's a dear friend of ours and was on the show a few weeks ago, they have a new book called Lifting the Veil. He and his wife, Betty Andreas and Luca. Bob took the photograph, the first one, and did a negative of it. And one of the things that he said was, this object is solid. There's no question about it. So it's not something on the lens of the camera. It's not like a little bubble of water or whatever. It's not. There's something solid there. And that's also on our Facebook page. So take a look at that as well. You will be our participant in this paranormal experiment. We want to know what you think this is. So this is a real deal, everybody. I don't know how to Photoshop anything. So it's
Me either.
Get what it is. You know, whatever comes out on the camera, you get it. There it is for all the world to see. So anyways, we also have some other great stories that we posted today. Now we have that strange, unfortunately resulted in the death of the pilot. Right. There was an aircraft from Area 51 that crashed, but they are not releasing anything, no details on this craft. So what does that tell you?
3 days after is when they announced that he had passed because of the crash. We still don't know what kind of a plane it was, which is very unusual.
Highly unusual.
He's active. Isn't he active duty as well? I do believe.
Yes. Yes. So that's very unusual. And you know, because you worked with the military, so you know that they don't usually do things like that. Nope. So we have to take a wild guess and think that perhaps this is one of the back-engineered UFO types of craft. And it is something that we all need to pay attention to. Now, we don't need disclosure from the government, everybody. We know they're here, and we know we've been back-engineering these types of things. Right. And we're sad to hear that somebody lost their life in one of these test flights. But again, there it is, Area 51. That's what happened there. Now, PK, you found something interesting also.
Yes.
What was that?
Well, about a couple of weeks ago, my sister sent this picture of a cloud, which looked like a dish, but it was definitely a cloud. It was pink. It was very fluffy, but it was in.
It looked like a UFO
circumference. Yes. So as we were looking at the pilot situation that we were looking at, right below it, it was talking about another UFO thing that took place 5 years ago with the same type of cloud. The only difference is it's long, it's narrow. This one's elongated. But outside of that, the colors in it are the same, whatever. So whatever's up there playing around, they better start giving us some answers.
That's right. We want a conversation. So they're welcome. They're welcome to your house in Tucson, to my house here. They can come and visit.
Definitely.
We are happy to have these conversations with these extraterrestrials or interdimensionals, whatever they may be, or a combination thereof. But we know they're here. It's well documented. Mm-hmm. So those are just some of the stories that you're going to see. There's many others. There's a Viking woman who was found in a grave, a warrior. That's an interesting story as well. So take a look, everybody, at our Facebook page. Give us a like. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter and sign up for the Fringe Files newsletter so you can keep abreast of what we're doing and who's coming up on the show, because we've got always great guests for you. The best of the best. We've got them right here on Supernatural Girls Radio.
Like tonight.
Like tonight.
Yes.
Tonight, we've got the best of the best. Once again, we have with us the author of The Transformational Power of Dreaming, Discovering the Wishes of the Soul. This is a very powerful book. And the co-author, again, is Stephen Larson. We're going to give him some credit as well. But our guest tonight is Tom Verner, and he is a practicing psychotherapist. And also, what we're going to talk about later, he has some very interesting things he does with children as a professional magician. Now, Tom was also a professor of psychology at Burlington College for 35 years, and he's a specialist in dream analysis, and we have him here with us. So let's welcome him to the show. Tom, happy to have you here.
It's wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm looking forward to a great discussion about this world of dreams.
I am too. I want to know how come and what for.
Yeah, that's right.
Me too.
We are rocking and rolling tonight with dreams. And we have so much to ask you, but let's start with, how did you get involved with dreams? What drew you to that subject?
Well, I lived in a monastery for 7 years.
Oh, my.
A Christian cloistered monastery. It was like living in the 13th century. We chanted 7 times a day in Latin and meditated and did all those kind of things. But at some point, I decided I needed to leave and do something else with my life. And as I was leaving, the master of the monastery had a book in his hand, and he said, I'm going to give you a book, and it was written by a man, and this book is going to help you get from this world of the monastery to the world where you're going, because the author of this book had a foot in each world. And he handed me Memories, Dreams, Reflections, the autobiography of Carl Jung. And that was the first time I had ever heard of Jung. That was over 40 years ago. And I'm sitting here in front of my bookcase, and this is the very book.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
That monk gave me. And here it is.
Oh, in all its pieces.
It's a book I've read many, many times, and I say if you want to learn about Jung, that's the best place to begin. So in the index of the book, I think it has, I could look, but I think it has 4 columns of dreams of Jung's recounted in the book. So the book is very much about his dream life, and it introduced me to the world of dreams, and I haven't looked back since.
And are you a heavy dreamer?
Pardon me?
Are you a heavy dreamer?
I'm not. I wouldn't consider myself a heavy dreamer. Mm-hmm. I dream, or we probably have to clear this up maybe right off the bat, because all the time people say to me, I don't dream. Well, it's just not possible not to dream. I mean, my PhD advisor, Stanley Krippner, who you probably know his work.
Yes. Yes.
Stanley did some dream deprivation research where he would, as soon as people would begin to go into a dream state, they would wake them up in the dream laboratory. And within 3 days, the people, if they had walked into an emergency room, would have been diagnosed paranoid schizophrenic. If you don't, as Mick Jagger says in Ruby Tuesday, if you lose your dreams, you lose your mind. And it's absolutely true. We just don't remember them. That's all, for the most part.
So they're there, but people just don't remember. Okay, go ahead, PK.
How do we learn to remember?
Well, that's kind of the very first thing that you need to pay some attention to and put some energy into. And a couple of things I can say, maybe this will come up again, but, put a notebook and a pen beside your bed. And then before you go to sleep, as you're falling asleep, give yourself some pre-sleep suggestion. In the morning, I will remember my dream. In the morning, I will remember my dream. And just say that 3 or 4 times as you're falling asleep. And that kind of seeds the unconscious, to help you in the morning. And then the other important thing is when you wake up in the morning, jot something down. You don't have to jot the whole dream down, but jot some key images that will bring the dream back. And it's the last thing you're going to want to do at that hour of the morning is just to reach over and write down, or it's gone. That's one of the mysterious things about dreams, is you can be in the middle of this amazingly intense experience. You wake up, I could never forget this, and it's gone.
Gone. Yeah.
How does that happen? It's
yes.
One of it points to part of the mystery of dreams, is that they can be forgotten so quickly. It's like they somehow, James Hillman, my great teacher, they seem to resist being dragged into the light of day somehow, and we have to do it very gently. And so anyhow, that's a few thoughts about how there are other ways you can drink a lot of water, and you have to pee in the night, and that'll wake you up. That can wake you up. Or you can take B6 about a half hour before you go to bed, and that seems to enhance dreaming. There's lots of other things that we talk about. We have an entire chapter in the book on remembering dreams.
The only dream I could honestly say I remember to any degree was about 10 years ago. And my husband had passed away at 37 years of age. Wow. There was different questions that had never been answered. I woke up, I felt the bed sit down, the down. I see him in his favorite sweater, leaning over, kissing me on the cheek. Heard him tell me what I needed to do where the children were concerned. And that was as vivid to me for 3 or 4 days. I couldn't lose it. It was there that day, and then after that it was gone. But that's the only time I've ever remembered anything that intensely.
How long ago was that? I mean, how long after he passed did you have that dream?
About 35, 37 years.
You had the dream 37 years later.
Yeah.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's incredible.
I'm a slow learner.
Because usually people have those kinds of dreams a little sooner, right, Tom? I mean, it's maybe a little bit sooner after somebody passes away.
They certainly can. My mom passed a couple of years ago, just 2 years ago, at 98 years old. I was really blessed to have her around. And my granddaughter, we had dinner together every Sunday night, almost, the family. And my granddaughter, Sangita, and my mom developed a very, very intense relationship. And she died, and Gita missed her very much. And then about a month later, she called me on the phone, and she said, I saw Grammy last night in a dream, but it wasn't a dream, Biba. She kept saying that over and over. She said, it wasn't a dream. She came into my room. It was very much like your husband standing there, She came She came into my room and woke me up Gita said, and said, I want to take you somewhere. And she took my granddaughter by her hand, and they went up into the sky. And my brother, who died before Sangeeta was born, was very close to my daughter. And she heard a lot about my brother from her mother. And so my mother took her into a room and said, I want you to meet a very special person. And she looked and she said, are you Uncle Jim? And
for heaven's sakes.
And he said, I've been looking out for you and keeping you safe, and you're doing wonderfully. Don't you worry. And then my mom started back down, and she said, oh, there's one other person. My mom was a very devout Catholic. And she said, I just almost offhandedly, she said, I want you to meet somebody. And they went into another space, and there was Jesus. And Jesus said to Gita, you're a wonderful little girl, and your grandmothers were so happy to have her here with us. And you'll be here someday with us also. And then she took her down. She said, Biba, this wasn't a dream. She said again, this wasn't a dream. And then Grammy took me back to my room and tucked me in and kissed me and said good night and went out my door. And I got up out of my bed, Biba, she said, and I opened the door and looked down the corridor to see if she was still there, but she was gone. And I went back and went to sleep. So there's the whole story of that in the book, and other dreams about death. And it seems like death ends a life, but not a relationship, and and often it can go on.
Well said.
It can go on in the dream world, which is quite magical.
It is magical.
That is. And
it again gives us a reason to understand the importance of dreams. I mean, if you're not paying attention to your dreams, this could be some of the wonderful experiences that you're missing. And certainly your granddaughter had a spectacular experience with her grandmother. But it's if you're not paying attention, as an adult, this is what you're going to miss.
Yeah. And she, that Christmas, I gave a copy of that dream to all the grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and that their grandma's still alive and well and looking after them, and it's really wonderful. Like her life goes on,
That's beautiful.
Wonderful.
What a gift. Yes,
definitely.
I think something you said, Patricia, is that it's one thing to remember the dream, and then we have to do something with it. It can be as little as my granddaughter telling me, and then asking me, or I asked her if I could write it down, and she wrote it all down for me, and then I copied it out in calligraphy and made a card for everyone in the family. But if we don't do something, there's a wonderful story about Edgar Cayce, who used, he would go into the sleeping prophet. He would go into those sleeping trance states, and people would write him all these letters, and his secretary, Gladys Davis, would read these letters, and his source would answer their questions. They might be physical diseases or financial problems or spiritual questions or whatever. But Cayce also had the wonderful gift of being able to have Gladys read his dreams to him while he was in that state and have them interpreted from that source that he contacted. And so he had given Gladys a dream that he wanted to have read to him. And then he came out of his trance and he said to Gladys, he said, what did they say about that dream? He really wanted to know. It was a very powerful dream. And Gladys was very embarrassed. She had great respect for Edgar Cayce. And she said, well, what the source said was, I gave you some information about a dream about a week ago, and you've done nothing about it. And until you do, there will be no further information about the dream. It's fantastic. Casey was
great.
Casey. So
Great.
if we do have the gift of receiving a dream, then we really need to do something with it, because Jung once said the conscious and unconscious work as hard as each other works, and it's a relationship. So
okay. So then we have to do something with it, and this is where I think dream groups become a really important adjunct to dream work. Having people to talk to you, to talk about your dreams, and to listen to them about their dreams becomes very powerful.
Dream groups can be. There's a wonderful book by a man named Montague Ullman, and he worked with Stan Krippner on telepathic dreams, and a woman named Nan Zimmerman, called Working with Your Dreams. And it's the best book on how regular folks, not psychotherapists or psychologists or dream experts or anything, can start a dream group. And if you have somebody, like my wife is really also interested in her dreams, and like 4 mornings a week we'll tell each other our dreams, if we bring them back, and one of us does or the other or both sometimes. But one of the best exercises that Ullman and Zimmerman talk about in there is a dreamer. One of the things about dream groups that when I've been in dream groups and there was a professional there, they usually worked on one dream and the rest of the group kind of sat there. Well, Ullman and Zimmerman came up with this really marvelous exercise where someone tells a dream and then everyone in the group writes the dream down, and then they take about 20 minutes by themselves, each person in the group, and they say, what if this was my dream? What would it mean to me? And then the dreamer gets what Ullman calls a reservoir of possible meanings. Everybody reads back what the dream would have meant to them. And the dreamer gets this gift of all these different, and this happened actually. My wife and I do these week-long dream retreats, and we did that exercise a couple of times that week. And someone told a dream, and I took it on as if it was my dream, and I wrote it down, I worked on it, and got a lot from it for myself, and as well as for the dreamer. And about 2 weeks later, I ran into someone who had been at the dream retreat, and I said, how are you doing? And he said, I'm still thinking about the dream retreat. And I said, I'm still thinking about it too. I'm thinking about that dream I had. And I told them, a little bit of the dream. And the person looked at me and said, Tom, that wasn't your dream. I said, what do you mean? He said, that was Brenda's dream. I said, what do you mean? I had so taken that on as my own and had continued to work with it that I actually began to believe it was my own dream. So anyhow, dream groups, Patricia, are a great way to work on your dreams. And we have a bunch of exercises in the book about how dream groups can work on each other's dreams.
Yeah, this is I think much needed, especially today. Yes. It helps people come together, helps us really go inside and see what other truths we can determine. Now we're going to take a short break in a minute, and we'll be back. But before we go, I wanted to tell everybody you can watch us live tonight at this link, irn.bz/Facebook Live. Again, that is irn.bz/Facebook Live. And take a look at our Facebook page. Again, Supernatural Girls. We got some crazy stuff there for you to look at. We want to know what you think of it. So, everybody, we are speaking tonight with Tom Verner. He is a dream expert, and we've got a lot to talk about tonight and hopefully give you the insight you may be looking for. So stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to Supernatural Girls Radio. I'm your host, Patricia Baker, here with my co-host, PK, and our illustrious guest, Tom Verner, expert in dreaming and author of The Transformational Power of Dreaming, Discovering the Wishes of the Soul. That's what we need to do, is discover the wishes of the soul. Well, we've got a couple of questions for you, Tom, from our chat room. This one is from Ethebiel, who says, hello. I had a dream that my friend, who had recently become my enemy, is dead. What does that mean?
Oh.
Bye-bye, Ducky.
Yeah.
She had a dream about her friend who she was now on the outs with in some way, that had become her enemy.
Became an enemy, and now that enemy in the dream died. What does that mean?
Well, I have to preface, I'm sure there are going to be other dreams. I just have to preface this with, Jung once said to Freud, he said, the difference between you and me is you interpret dreams and I interpret dreamers. He said, you don't need the dreamer there because you know what the dream means already, because you have a theory and you reduce the dream to your theory. He said, but I need to ask the dreamer about the symbols in the dream because only the dreamer knows what the dream means. He said, say there was a pencil in the dream. Well, Freud knew what that meant. It was some phallic symbol of sexuality or power or something. But Jung said to him, wonder if the dreamer was a writer. Wonder if the dreamer was illiterate. Wonder if the dreamer had had his eye poked out by his older brother when they were 10 years old with a pencil. They're three very different pencils, Jung said. And I wouldn't know that unless I had the dreamer. So that being said, I would ask the dreamer, why is this person showing up right now? I'd want to know how long the dreamer has been enemies with this person, who sounded like they might have been an important person in their life, and now they're an enemy. And I know how hard that has been in my life when a good friend has become an enemy. It feels like a very, it's almost as if the person would like them completely out of their life so they don't have to think about them. They don't have to deal with them. They don't have to deal with that maybe hurt or pain or missing or longing or whatever. I don't know. I'd love to talk with that dreamer about it. What I would do if I was that dreamer, I can give them I would sit down, I would quiet myself, I would put myself in my imagination in a place where that person and I used to really like to go together, that friend, now an enemy, and close their eyes, imagine that person across from them, have a piece of paper there on her desk as she's imagining this person there, and have a conversation with that person. Like, why are you showing up in my dream? And why are you, and just see what, it can be amazing how that person can say things. If you can open yourself up to being surprised, things they will say that you're shocked by, and it might heal the relationship, I don't know. Somehow it feels to me, and this might be wishful thinking or something, it feels like the relationship is looking to be healed in some way. And I'm not, that's my intuition about the dream. Even though it seems to be saying, the hell with you, I wish you were dead. I'm not sure that's what the dream is saying at all. And I can't justify that rationally, but just having heard so many dreams, that's what it feels like. If that's all I can say right now.
That makes sense. Yes, thank you for that. Now here's another question. This is from Starlight, who would like to know, what do constant dreams of beaches mean?
Beaches, wow. the first thing that comes to my mind, and it's really interesting. I'm not really pitching the book every time I say this, but there's a lot in the book about the in-between places, the places between waking and sleeping, the between darkness and light, between dreaming and waking and all that. And beaches are very much places between.
Okay.
Between the great source of life, the great mother herself, the ocean, and the land. And to be in that place between is a very, very powerful place. Like on the equinoxes or the solstices, those places between seasons, the dawn and the dusk, those power times are all times between. And I can't say what that particular beach means, but I would ask her to place herself there in her imagination, go back into the dream and imagine she's in that place. And what does that begin to bring up in her? You know, that's
perfect.
The best, you know. And also Jung, as I said, was very hesitant to say this means that or that means this, or, you know, but the ocean, he really felt, was the unconscious in many ways, was the great source of images and guidance. So it may have something to do with that. I'm not sure.
Yes. I can see why you're such a great psychotherapist, and I can see why you're such a great dream analyst. You hit it right on the head. Now, here's a question from Starseed. This is from Starseed, who's saying, do you recommend using waking and lucid dreaming to address recurring dreams?
I wonder why she's wondering that. Lucid. You mean, oh, okay. Yeah, I think so. I think that if she's having a recurring dream, and she can become lucid in it, she oftentimes, a recurring dream is about something like Edgar Cayce. If you don't deal with the issue that the dream is presenting to you, it's going to keep showing up. And there's, I'd love to tell a recurring dream that is in the book. A patient of mine.
Yes, please go ahead.
And this might help Starseed. Starseed, was it? Starseed.
Yes.
This woman, a young woman, she was in high school. She lived in a very rigid, it happened to be a Catholic family, and she just couldn't wait to get out of the house. And she ended up meeting a guy, and she very quickly, they moved in together, and very soon after that, she got pregnant. And it scared the hell out of the guy, and he took off. And now she had a baby, and she had to come back home to her parents, crawling back home. And she started having a recurring dream. She was in the bedroom, and her little bassinet with her baby was in the bedroom with her. And the door would open. These are particularly terrifying dreams because you're dreaming, you're in bed, sleeping, you're dreaming where you are. So it feels real. So she wakes up in her dream. She's awake, and this door opens, and there's a dark figure coming over, and he has a knife in his hand, and she wakes up screaming. She brought that into therapy, and we worked on it. She went back into the dream, and I just asked her, she had had it 2 or 3 times, and I asked her, can she, when that figure gets close, can she say, what do you want from me? Confront the figure like that. What do you want from me? And take that fear and have the courage to, like, because for me, every part of the dream is a part of myself. Right. And so the Senoi, the indigenous people in Malaysia who have a great dream culture, say where the fear is, that's where the power is. So if you can confront that fear, that's power that you're not owning in some way. So the dream the figure kept getting closer and closer. And one night, one session she came in, she said something very strange happened. She said the figure is wearing my coat now. So it's making it pretty clear to her that this is part of herself. So gradually what ended up happening was she realized the figure was not coming to kill her, but to kill her baby. And then we started, because it would go over toward the bassinet, and then she'd say, "What do you want from me?" And it would turn and come up. But she never told me that piece of the dream, because she couldn't really say it out loud, that this person was really a part of herself that resented this baby. The baby now got her crawling back home, taking all this kind of stuff from her parents now. And so eventually the person came right next to the bed in the dream, raised this knife, and she said, "What do you want from me?" And the knife came down, and just as it crossed the face of this intruder, it burst into a torch, and it illuminated the most beautiful version of herself that she had ever seen. And she never had the dream again. Once she acknowledged that there was some part of her that wanted to kill her baby, she didn't have to kill it anymore. And this dark, terrible part of herself became this powerful, beautiful part of herself. So I just think that if that was a kind of lucidity,
Yes.
So I think Starseed is on the right track by saying, maybe if I can become lucid in the dream, it'll transform whatever darkness is in them. Maybe it's often recurring dreams can be difficult dreams. And she didn't say what kind of dream it was, but I kind of assume it probably is. I don't know.
Oftentimes they are difficult and difficult to fathom, difficult to, people sometimes don't like to go to sleep in case they have that dream again. But again, as a dream therapist and a psychotherapist, you teach people how to confront the fear in the dream, how to become lucid, how to use the fear to your advantage. And I know there's a lot of techniques, and you have a bunch of them in the book, about how to make all of this happen. I mean, we can have dream buddies that we call on, right? Yeah. So that we ask them, like if I ask PK to be my dream buddy and things get hairy in my dream and I call on PK, she's going to show up because I've asked her in the conscious world to be my dream buddy. And so then I've got somebody by my side, and as I'm confronting this, whatever it is, the monster that is stalking me, she's right there with me. So it's really important. And I see dreams and the way you talk about them in the book as a way of bringing people together again, as a way of teaching people self-empowerment through connection to the self, connection to the people around us. And again, you've got these great techniques in here in this book to help you to feel safe when you encounter things in your dream that are scary, but also how to deal with them, how to take the power back from them. The Senoi tribe, and I used to say it a little differently than I do, they teach their children how to do this, right?
They do, absolutely. What you said was, having PK come into your dream as an ally, that's something, say a Senoi child has a nightmare, like they fell off a cliff and they're falling. In the morning, or even in the night if the child woke up, they would comfort the child and let them go back to sleep. In the morning, they would say to the child, You were not falling. You were beginning to fly, but you forgot you were in the dream universe where you can fly. So tonight, go over to that cliff in your dream, and the parent will sit on the bed as the child is falling asleep. And instead of saying, oh, it was just a dream, forget it, they'll say, in the dream tonight, go over to that cliff behind Uncle Charlie's house and stand there and leap off the cliff, because you are not only about to fly, you are about to fly to a very beautiful place where you are going to receive a gift that would be very important for you. And if you get scared at the edge of the cliff, have PK come over and stand beside you, or have your buddy or have us come over and stand beside you and encourage you and support you. And then the child goes and the next morning tells what gift they received. And then they'll spend the next days creating that gift, or finding someone in, maybe it was a blowpipe for hunting. And they would go and with someone who's an expert on that kind of thing, and they would find and make a blowpipe. And then once a month, the Senoi have these show and tell, where recipes they found in dreams, clothes, songs, dances, gifts, and they'll get together and have a big dream party and bring the food that they learned about in a dream. Someone just told me, cooked a meal for me, and they told me that it was a meal that they first tasted in a dream. That happened about 2. So anyhow.
That is powerful. Very powerful. Now, again, there is a tremendous amount of power in the dream world. There are also, there's a difference, though, between something that we were just talking about, and that's having a nightmare, okay, and having a night terror.
Yeah.
What's the difference between those two things?
Well, I'm not, actually my co-author, Stephen, who's really a neurophysiologist, knows a lot more about night terrors than I do, but I can answer that question, at least partially. A nightmare happens in the dream state. It happens during REM sleep. Night terrors do not happen during dreams.
Okay. Really?
It happens in non-REM. In the nightmare, it has content. I'm afraid of something, you know. Mm-hmm. Could be a spider, or could be somebody chasing me, or whatever it is. There's content. And if you wake someone up and in a nightmare, there may be some moaning, you might make some noises, there might be a little bit of movement, but very, very little. And if you come back from the nightmare, you often have the content. People in having night terrors, it's very, very physiological. There's often no content. It's often difficult to rouse the person. Sometimes it can take as long as 20 minutes to get some, and that's terrifying for a parent, you know, to have a child who's in this crazy state, who's screaming, who's moving around, who's walking around their room, who's yelling, who's soaking wet with sweat oftentimes. And they come back and there's often total amnesia about the experience. They don't have content. So another way to think about it is a nightmare is like fear, where there's an object. Night terror is like anxiety, which is an objectless fear, psychologists call it. It's fear without any object. That's what makes it so. When you're afraid of a spider, or afraid of the dark, or afraid of heights, or afraid of a person. With anxiety, you're just filled with objectless fear, dread, but you don't know why. You don't have you can't step on the spider. You know, that's what makes night terror so terrifying, is that there's nothing there. You know, it seems that you're afraid of. It's just just this overwhelming, terrifying anxiety. Does that make any sense?
Yes,
it makes a lot. Yes,
about
it makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
A nightmare
Yes,
is a
absolutely.
dream. A nightmare. And I think if a child has, I mean, the good news is night terrors tend to go away, as a child grows, but there can be physiological reasons for them. And you should always tell your pediatrician or your doctor about your child having night terrors. And pediatricians who know about it can check for different things that may be causing the night terror that is not psychological, but physiological.
That's very important information, and thank you so much for giving that to us tonight, and especially for parents. They need to know the difference between those two things. So that is very important, and they should be confiding with the pediatrician if that's happening, if their child is having night terrors. This is more of a child thing, right? Night terrors, not an adult thing.
It tends to be with children, but adults
can have it too.
We had a woman at our dream retreat who we didn't know before she came was subject to night terrors, and it was really scary. To see an adult, it's hard enough to feel but to see a grown woman screaming and sweating and terrified and trying to wake her, it was scary. But you're right; it tends to be in children.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
very interesting.
Okay, I mean, there's more. There's more to be said. Some psychologists think it's children dealing with anxiety of developmental stages and changes in their life and different things. But pediatricians usually know about this. So,
yeah, I think it's important, as you mentioned, to have that dialogue if they have children that are going through something like that. But I love the way you described it. I think it's very clear to understand and easy to understand the way you just described it for us and our audience.
Right.
So we're going to take another very short break. And if you have a question for Tom, then you can write it in the chat room, and that is irnchat.com. That's irnchat.com. And also take a look again at our Facebook page. Give us a like and a follow. Tell us what you think of those balls of light. Maybe you can program a dream about it and ask for your dreaming mind to tell you, what are these things? And we want to hear about it. We want to hear what dreams you have about these balls of light. Maybe you've got the answer, or your dreaming mind has the answer for us. So we would love to hear about all of that from you guys. So make sure you take a look at those on our Facebook page, and then write us and tell us what you think is going on. So anyway, stay tuned, everybody. We are speaking with Tom Verner tonight on the transformational power of dreaming, discovering the wishes of the soul. Don't we all want to know that?
Oh, boy.
You are listening to Supernatural Girls Radio. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to Supernatural Girls Radio. I'm your host, Patricia Baker, here with my co-host, PK, and our guest tonight, Tom Verner. He is helping us to understand the landscape of dreams. Now, we're going to talk about dream incubation. How can you get an answer to your questions? How can you program a dream? Tom, help us out with this.
Okay, so dream incubation is a term that's used for a practice that has been practiced by human beings for literally thousands of years. China, India, the Middle East. It was raised to an amazingly high level in ancient Greece. The Iroquois had numerous Native American tribes used incubation. And so what it is actually turning, regarding your dream, this source inside of you as a source of guidance, and that you don't have to just be passive about it, but that you could prepare yourself. Say you have a question, a concern, it might be physical, psychological, spiritual, whatever it is, that before you go to sleep, you formulate a question and you ask your dream for a response to that question. And you have what James Hillman calls psychological faith, faith in the psyche, that she will give you a response to your question. And no matter how strange the response might be, assume that it's a response to your question. And you may not remember a dream the next morning. Try it again the next night. In ancient Greece, around 500 BC, there were 300 temples around Greece where people would go and sleep and ask for a special dream from the god of healing, Asclepius. But before they went into the temple to sleep, they would talk to the temple attendant, whose name was Therapetos, where we get the word therapist from. And they would talk to the Therapetos about their question. The Therapetos would help them clarify their question, and then they would go into the temple and ask for a dream. And it's something we do. We have a little house. It's only 10 by 10 on our property that's only for dreaming. It's only a dream. It's only a dream incubation house. And people will come and sleep in there during our retreats. We prepare someone. They spend the whole day clarifying in the dream house, clarifying their question. I'll go and talk with them. They'll do solitary walks, clarifying. And then the group works with them at night. And then in a torch-lit procession, we take them to the dream house. And someone goes in with them and tucks them in. And they ask for a dream. And it's been astonishing when you give the dream that kind of regard and that kind of reverence and that kind of respect, what it gives you. So that's roughly what dream incubation. I had a thought that maybe your listeners could go to the, is it on the Facebook page? And look at those, look at those balls of light. Right. And spend some time like looking at them, being in their presence, the photograph or the picture, whatever it is. And then when you go to sleep tonight or tomorrow night, ask for some additional information, some image, some guidance about what these balls of light could possibly be. And it would be really wonderful if people would then send the dreams they came up with to the Facebook page, you know, and just see.
I would love that. Yeah.
I think it could be really exciting to see what shows up.
I think this is a great idea, Tom, and PK and I are going to post this again so that people can do what you're suggesting. It would be wonderful to read everybody's dreams as they ask the question, what are these balls of light, or however they want to frame the question is fine. And just let us know. This will set up a whole new dialogue. And again, this show is all about where paranormal is normal. So being able to interpret something like that or find out the truth about a paranormal event through dreaming, what a wonderful way to do that. And again, I want to keep encouraging everybody to pay attention to their dreams, do the dream work, and you're going to benefit so much from it. And here's a wonderful way that we can all join together and see what our dreams tell us about these balls of light. I'm going to do that tonight. I'm going to write my question
challenge
down.
Our audience to this.
I'll do it.
Make a challenge.
I'll do it also. What I think might be happening, you know, is when we fall asleep, and that's an interesting word that we use, you know, and it shows up in other languages. We don't ascend to sleep. We don't go sideways to sleep. We fall into sleep.
Yeah,
you know?
Never thought
we
about
go
that.
down. You know, maybe some reference to the old idea that we went down into the underworld during dreams or whatever. But I think whatever that means, part of the falling is that the ego loses its grip on our consciousness. Okay. And we're in a state that isn't controlled by one way of seeing things. And so we're open to other sources of information and possibilities and imagination and perspectives. And I think that's one of the things that makes dreams so powerful is it's a door. Jung said it's the dream is a secret little door hidden in the deepest recesses of the psyche that opens out into cosmic night, he said. And I think through that door, all kinds of things come, and we can go through that door. I would just like to tell one dream that I think your listeners might be interested in from my own dream.
Yes, please. Yes.
And it changed my way of understanding the world. I mean, that's how big this dream was. I was in Jungian analysis with this Jungian analyst who had worked with Jung in Switzerland. And then she opened up a residential treatment center in Litchfield, Connecticut, for young schizophrenics. And I worked there with her as a therapist, and I was also in analysis with her for a number of years. And then I moved to British Columbia, and I lived on an island in British Columbia for a number of years. I woke up one morning with a dream, and the dream is that I'm standing, we had a little conference center on the property of this residential treatment center where Renee, that was her name, would do little conferences and courses and workshops on dreams and Jungian psychology. In my dream, Renee, there's a circle of people. She's about to begin a workshop on dreams. And out of the kitchen comes the cook, Joni, and she says, there's a phone call for you, Renee. And so Renee gets up, goes into the kitchen, and I know, like you know in dreams sometimes, that the dream is about the death of her brother. I also know from knowing her that this was her last living relative, and it was really going to be a difficult news for her. She comes out of the kitchen. I walk over to her in the dream, and I give her a hug, and I say, I'm really, really sorry to hear about Carlos's death. And she says, thank you very much, and gives me a big hug back. And it's just a beautiful moment, and the dream ends. So I write it down. 3 months later, I come back to the East Coast, and I call Renee, and she says, why don't we have dinner together? So we sit down, we have dinner. And in the course of dinner, she says, have you had any interesting dreams lately? Which was a question she asked me many, many times. It wasn't a strange thing for her to ask me. And I said, as a matter of fact, I had a dream about you. And I told her the dream I just told you. And she said, when was that? And I took out my dream journal, and I looked it up, and I said it was October 21st. She takes out her appointment book, and she says, that's exactly what was happening that morning in Litchfield, Connecticut. You know, I was in that circle. Joni came out, said, you have a phone call. It was about Carlos's death. She said, that's interesting enough. She said, but what's really interesting was when I was coming out of the kitchen, walking back to the circle, I was going to say, I just don't have the strength to go on with the workshop right now. I need some time. But somewhere between that kitchen door and my seat, I got strength. And now I know where that strength came from.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, fabulous.
And she got up from the table and walked over and gave me this big hug in this restaurant and said, thank you, and sat down. And we ended up having this conversation. And part of the conversation was, how often does this happen? You know, I think it happens all the time, but we just happen to have a relationship where she would ask me. I didn't even say to her, Renee, I had a dream. The way I think about it, I can't explain that. I can't explain it. You can call it out-of-body travel, or you can call it whatever. But it felt like here was a woman. I mean, this is just so wonderful. Here was a woman who helped me so much in my life as my analyst. And I'm there in British Columbia, 3,000 miles away, kind of like Clark Kent, you know.
Yes.
And I'm, you know, down the street, somebody's in trouble in Gotham City. And I picked up some part of me that loved her and that knew she was hurting, flew there and gave her a hug. I mean, that's astonishing. You know,
it is. It is. What a beautiful experience that you had. And like you said, this may be happening all the time, but we need to pay attention to our dreams and have these conversations so that the next step can unfold. So this is beautiful, beautiful event that you and she had together. Wow.
I mean, all I can say about it is I can't explain it, and the explanations are not as powerful as the experience, you know, in many ways.
Yes.
Right.
But that there's more going on than meets the eye, that's for sure. And in this dream state, there's a door, and we can do all kinds of things, I think, like go to Litchfield 3000. And what's interesting was it was exactly the same time. It was 6 o'clock a.m.
Oh, wow.
on Denman Island and 9 o'clock in Litchfield. I don't think it necessarily had to be, because the dreams can do interesting things with time and space. But it happened to be just when that was happening, you know. And how did I get there? How did I know that? You know, that's really wild.
It is incredible, and it really speaks to that we are all connected, and especially you had such a love and respect for each other, and so you responded to something somewhere. Just a beautiful event, just beautiful. And again, I believe, Tom, we can all have these types of experiences, but we do need to pay attention to our dreams. Keep the dream journal. Talk to people about our dreams. Develop dream groups within our own friendships. Make it happen.
If you have a dream about somebody, and you have to be careful about this, because, you know, sometimes the dreams people are going to think they're really weird, but sometimes it's really important to tell a person, I had a dream about you last night, because the dream might be for them.
Yes.
It may have come through you, but it might be their dream.
It could be. Yes, it has happened. It has, absolutely. So it's so important. And again, your book details a lot of the techniques and the tools that people need to begin this journey, or to start it up when maybe they started this a while ago, put it away, time to dust it off and bring it back around. So this is a book to get, The Transformational Power of Dreaming. I've got a bunch more questions from the chat room also. Let me see if I can get to just a couple. Somebody wants to know, can you actually die for real in a dream? So I guess what they're asking is, if you dream about dying, can you really die in a dream?
Death in a dream is, more often than not, has nothing to do with physical death. It really has to do with change and a big dying to one and something new. And that's the best possible way to think about death in a dream. I imagine people have died in you know, a dream state, but we don't know because
right, it'd be hard to know, wouldn't it?
It would be hard to know, but I certainly know people have died in their dreams and woke up, and it really did have to. The word dream and the word drama come from exactly the same etymological root. So dreams, if dreams want to tell us something, they're going to tell us something in a dramatic kind of way. And if change is coming, they're going to present it as death, oftentimes. You know? But, you know, I think if someone dreams about Abraham Lincoln, you know, 4 days before he was assassinated, had a dream he came down the stairs and there was this hushed, sad feeling in the White House, and there was someone standing outside the room where this kind of something was going on, and he said, what's going on in there? And he said, the president's been killed. You know?
Mm.
That was Lincoln's dream 4 days before he was killed. You know.
Yes.
So for heaven's sakes, that's right.
You can dream about. You know.
Yes, I think also. Yeah, let me just mention. I think for
one more little dream. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say to everybody out in our audience tonight that I know a lot of people are interested in becoming more psychic, more intuitive.
Right.
This is a great way to do it. I mean, if you pay attention to your dreams, you can become precognitive. I remember a week before 9/11 happened, and I had said to my husband, there's going to be a terrorist attack on American soil. He laughed his head off at me.
Wow.
He thought that was the stupidest thing I ever said. And yet a week later, my dream came, unfortunately, true. This is what happened. So again, I've worked with my dreams for many, many years. And so this is true for everybody that I know and everybody I've worked with dreams. You can become precognitive. You can become more intuitive, more psychic through paying attention to your dreams. It is so worthwhile. I want to urge everybody to do that. So go ahead, Tom. You wanted to share something.
I just wanted to say that my teacher, James Hillman, used to like to say, any meaning that we get from a dream is one of many possibilities. Right. At the end of a good dream session, if I'm working with someone, the ending is they got something really valuable that was useful and helpful in their life, and yet there's still this sense that there's so much more that the dream has to give us. And I just wanted to say that an example of how dreams can mean different things on different levels. A woman comes into my office, she tells me a dream. She's driving along the highway. She exits, a right exit that goes down a hill. The exit stops at a crossroad, a T. There's a traffic light. And she's going down the hill, there's traffic going, and she puts on her brakes and she has no brakes. And she wakes up terrified. Not an unusual dream. So she tells me that dream. The first thing I say to her is, have you had your brakes checked lately?
Yeah.
And
good question.
And she laughs and she said, no, I think they're fine, but I'm having my car inspected next week and they'll check the brakes. I said, good. So then I went to the next thing, which is I would encourage your listeners to do with their dreams. What's your association with that exit, Sigourney Street exit? It happened. Mm. She said to me, well, that's where I get off to visit my new boyfriend, John, who she had been in a relationship with about 3 months at that point. And I said to her, how's that relationship going? And totally unconsciously, she says to me, she says, well, I'm afraid I'm doing what I often do. I'm going too fast in the relationship. It feels out of control. I'd like to slow it down, maybe even stop it for a while, but I can't. It's just out of control. No connection whatsoever to the dream. None
right.
I said,
oh my goodness.
I just said to her, I said, do you feel a bit in the relationship the way you felt in the car when you couldn't stop? And she said, yes. And we talked and she said, I'd like to talk with John about it, but I'm afraid he's going to think I want to end the relationship and I just want to slow it down a little bit because I do this over and over and I end relationships because I go too far, too fast in the dreams. So she comes back the next week. She sits down. She has this little sheepish smile on her face. She said, my mechanic said I had no brake pads whatsoever. It was metal on metal.
Oh, my God.
She said it was like really dangerous. And so said, then I said, she said, I had that talk with John about slowing down. And she said, he wanted to do the same thing. He just felt so much pressure and we were going too fast. And he thought I was going to ask him, could I move in and let's get married? Whatever. So we talked about that for many sessions to go. But the way I kind of think about it, is story editors, like in Hollywood, who make up the plot of a movie. I think during those dreams come every 90 minutes throughout the night. It's a whole other conversation we could have about what's going on amazingly in the body when we're dreaming. But anyhow, during those 80 minutes or so before the dream begins, there are these story editors sitting around in our psyche. And one of them, the really practical dude on the committee, says, you know, we got to talk to her about her brakes, because if we don't get her to fix her brakes, it doesn't matter all this psychological stuff. She's going to be dead. Okay, and there's a person writing down ideas, and then the sensitive, probably woman relationship person says, you know, she's out of control again in her relationship with John. We got to slow her down. She's going to ruin that relationship like she's ruined the last 4. So they're write that down. And now the clock is ticking. REM is about to start. And they say, then the creative person on the committee says, here, I got an idea. We'll have her going along Route 84, exit at John's exit. She loses her brakes. She can't stop. And in the can, drop the dream in the psyche, and off we go. And it's talking about the most practical thing, and it's talking about this ongoing life issue, both at the same time. And dreams are immensely creative, and that's a whole other topic, creativity in dreams.
And it is so, but it's so important. I mean, again, this is why we need to pay attention. And I'm so glad, Tom, that you and Stephen wrote this book together, because it really, people need your book. People need to understand the power that's involved in dreaming. You know, if they want this type of relationship with cosmic consciousness, this is a way to get it. And what better way than to pay attention to your very own dreams? It's so important. This is important work. It's fun work. It's helpful. It'll save your life. You know, it's
Yes.
just, save your relationships. It's what could, I mean, there's nothing better, in my opinion, than dream work. And Tom, again, thank you so much. This has gone way too fast. This show is way too short. We're going to have you come back, because again, we will definitely have you back. There's so much more to talk about. And we're going to definitely have you back. But anyways, I'm sorry, everybody. I know there were a ton more questions in the chat room, and they were all good questions. I'm sorry we couldn't get to you all tonight. But do get a copy of Tom's terrific book. Again, it is The Transformational Power of Dreaming, Discovering the Wishes of the Soul. It's great. And keep your dream journal. Take a look at those lights on the driveway. And we're all going to do some dreaming on this to figure it out. What in the world is this? We want to know what this paranormal event has to do with us. It has to do with all of us. So we're going to find out. And then in the meantime, everybody, we'll be back next week with another new show. We're going back to talking about aliens. We have a lady coming in. She's going to fascinate you. All about aliens, earthquakes, hurricanes. We're going to do it all next week. In the meantime, we'll see you on the Blue Highway. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, PK. Good night.